Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video with Swagglehos. And in this video, we need to commiserate. You know, sometimes in comic book collecting, we love to post our W's, we love to share our big books, but every now and again, we need to talk about our L's. I know I have a ton of them, and I know there's people out there that also have a ton of them as well. And so in this video, I wanted to go through this Reddit thread that actually was talking about your biggest comic book buying and selling regrets. And I think there's a lot of interesting stories that we should share with one another. And then maybe in the comments down below, you guys can talk about some of your biggest comic book regrets you've had in your collecting journey. But of course, before I get into the video, if you guys could like, comment, subscribe, I appreciate it. Help support the channel, doing those things. Also, Sanity, 20 hours left. Can you believe it, guys? 20 hours left on the campaign, my Crafty and comic book adventure written by me. Link is in the description if you guys want to support it before the clock runs out. Well, I thought that this was interesting because there's a Reddit thread here, which is, what's your biggest comic book buying and selling regret? And I actually made a video about this topic 2 years ago, my top 5 comic books that I regret selling. And I thought it would be kind of interesting to revisit it in this video with you guys here today, read some of the stories, make it not about me, but what's going on with other collectors out there. Although I will talk about, some of my more recent selling regrets that I had in my own personal experience, and I would definitely love to hear your guys's down below. But let's go through this thread together and see what people are talking about. The person that started the thread says, I'll go first. I recently auctioned $19K worth of books with Heritage. I thought for sure I'd make back my money or close to it, but instead I lost about $7K. Had I sold them myself, I could have controlled the selling price or just kept them if they wouldn't sell. I would have been much better off, but I gave it a shot and it didn't work out. Ooh, $7K, that's pretty brutal. That's a tough one. I mean, auctions are rolling the dice, right, guys? I mean, you guys know what it is. Sometimes the auction works out. Sometimes you get it. Sometimes you get got. Man, I feel bad for this guy. It's hard to say, without him specifically saying, what the books are that he had at auction. If, is it, a case where, well, the market has just adjusted based on what you think the fair market value is? Or did you actually, did the buyers actually get amazing deals on the books that were out there? And I wonder how many books it was, because he said that he auctioned a bunch of books with Heritage. And, a lot of people always talk about how Heritage, is the best place to sell because it has the most eyeballs. But in my experience, I actually feel like you get better deals on Heritage than what I've seen with some of the other auction houses. Because I think there's so many auctions on Heritage. I mean, they have weeklies that a lot of books do slip through the cracks from time to time. But hey, my comic heart goes out to that guy. Hopefully you can make some of that money back with other books you sell in the future. This person says, back when the Watchmen movie came out, I decided to sell my original issues 1 through 12. Ooh. I used a lower end postal method because I simply couldn't believe someone would pay that much postage for comic books. But that method didn't include tracking. Oh no. The recipient claimed they didn't receive the books and I had no way to prove they did or didn't get them, so I had to give them a refund. So I ended up losing the books, paying the shipping, and getting nothing back for it. Oh man. This is a good time to talk about, guys, comic book insurance. Comic book insurance and paying the extra $3 for signature confirmation. You'll never regret that. You will never regret it. That's for sure. I sold my Walking Dead 1 through 12 in the beginning of 2005 for less than $100 total. 1 through 12 in the beginning of 2005 for less than $100, man. I mean, issue 1 alone, I don't know where it currently is, but I think 9/8 are they were selling at $3,000, upwards of $3,000 at one point. I think now maybe they're like $2,200. And I do kind of wonder where Walking Dead goes from here. Aren't we kind of done with the show? Will it kind of fade away into cultural relevance? Will those Walking Dead 1 auctions still have value? I don't know. But either way, that top 10 stuff, I mean, people definitely like collecting that stuff. And Walking Dead, does have historical comic book value in so much as it's really one of the first modern indies to really change the market. That's when a lot of people got back into collecting. And yeah, this GIF reaction says it all right there. That's a good one. I got to remember to use that one. Sold my collection 1972 through 87 with a decent amount of pre-1972 books, mostly Marvel. In 88 or 89 to a friend who had a comic shop for chump change, really. 13 long boxes. That was just too much trouble to move around all the time. Yeah, that was an oops. F's in the chat, man. F's in the chat for that. I mean, that's the collection that everyone just wishes, that they would find. Like, oh, let me just get 13 longs, all of, 1970s Marvel with a bunch of pre-72 books, Silver Age stuff. And you know what's funny about these is, like, even though he doesn't really discuss it, you know that those were probably pretty good conditions. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like the collectors that were collecting those books back then probably were buying the good stuff. The good stuff. Selling almost all the good stuff, Burn, X-Men, Run, etc. out of my collection, 2000 before movie hype, internet, speculation, and pandemic sent prices to the moon. That's life. I mean, that is life, because even though these are some of the L's, and it's definitely one of those, like, oh, we can all look back and say, like, yeah, the book sells for more now than it did back then. I mean, if you made your money at the time, you made your money at the time. What can you really do about it? I mean, maybe all the books that we're sitting on are going to be worth 10x 10 years from now. But does that mean that you shouldn't take profits? If you are somebody who is trying to trade to something or wants to sell comic books for money, I mean, you kind of need to take profits. I probably either threw the first Miles Morales appearance away or lost it along with my first Spider-Gwen book. I hated the character and didn't think that they would be worth anything. Oh well. I mean, are they really worth anything, guys? Am I right? Oh, well, yeah, they are. They are. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding, Miles fans. Selling Moon Knight 1 through 20 as an auction instead of buy it now. I got it. I mean, Moon Knight, dude, have you guys seen Moon Knight #1? You guys remember that book? That book has had one of the biggest fall from graces that almost any COVID book has had in terms of its value, especially at the 9.8 level. And outside of 9.8, I don't even think you can sell that book. It is so hard to move it. And I have to imagine that, anytime you auction, there's always risk. Passed on a Gym 112 for $32 at my LCS 25 years ago. Really wanted it, but had never spent that much on a comic and couldn't justify it. Wish I had pulled the trigger. You know what's funny is it's all relative. $32. I can remember in my collecting lifetime the first time I spent $20 on a comic book. Then I can remember the first time I spent $50 on a comic book. Then I can remember the first time I spent $100 on a comic book. And at the time, all of those prices were ridiculous to me. And then you spend $1,000, and then you spend $5,000. And then for some of you out there who probably regularly spend $10,000 or $20,000 or whatever you buy, it's always ridiculous. It's always ridiculous at the time. And then you get so desensitized and you look back on it and you say $32. I mean, I'd buy a Spider-Boy 1 for $32. Buy a New Mutants 87 for like $100 plus, and then it fell to much below that. Then it got stolen, and now it's back up again. I bought a New Mutants 98 for $1 at a garage sale, near mint minus. I raffled it off and only made $100. That was like 8 years ago. Original art from Captain Marvel 27, needed the money, sold it on Heritage. Wish I could have held it longer. Hey, you know what? You got first Deadpool for $1. You sold it for $100. 100x profit. 100x profit ain't that bad. Now, first appearance of Cable, that's a book that's really funny to me. It feels like that's a perfect example of a book that gets super hot and then gets super cheap and nobody cares about it. And then it gets super hot again. It just doesn't have, the staying power that Deadpool does as far as like character popularity. But that was the book back in the day, man. Like early 90s, like Cable. I mean, I don't know if there's any 20-year-olds watching this video right now, but you guys don't remember, man. You guys don't remember. There was a point when Cable was that dude. You know, Cable was the guy. And it'll be interesting if Cable ever gets back up to that level. Selling original art, you know, that's always going to hurt. You know, you're never really going to get back original art once you sell it. But hey, if you needed money at the time, you needed money at the time. Ain't nothing wrong with that. When I left for the Navy and let my future brother-in-law at the time hold on to and read through my Batman collection, entire detective and Batman run from 86 to 94, I guess I wasn't 100% clear when I told him he was only borrowing them when he sold the entire lot for chump change to buy some football cards. Oh no, not football cards. Sold my ASM 50 CGC 55 in 2020 for $200. Bought another one in 2022 for $1,000. Oh no. There it is, guys. There it is. That's my motto. Sell low and buy high. That's what we do. That's comic collecting 101. Sell low, buy high. Bought Silver Surfer 1 at auction for $800. The shape of the cover made it look like it was a $1,200 book. When I received it in the mail, I was overjoyed as to how good it looked. When I went to send it for grading, I took it out of its bag just to look through it before I sent it off and saw that 9/10 of the pages are water damaged. From the back of the comic leaking inwards knocked the value down to $300 at most. I also bought an Ultimate Fallout 4 at auction for $80 and thought I was getting a steal of a deal. I only realized when I received it that it was the 2021 reprint, not the original print, so basically worthless. I will probably just give that one to my nephew. He loves Miles Morales. Oh man, those are some good ones. Those are some good L's right there. And, you know, hopefully it's not because it's your fault, because when I read these two, I think to me, maybe you're not reading the fine print when you bid on those auctions right there. But that's, you know, that's a good warning for all of us out there. Sometimes you see those things on eBay and you'll see that the list looks good and it'll say Silver Surfer 1. And then when you go into the description, it says something like, oh, page 10 missing, or like coupon cutout. And it doesn't help you realize that it's not how the book is being presented. So you always got to go in there. You always got to be careful with those auctions. And there's some shady sellers for sure. When I was a kid, I got to visit Seattle and found a copy of Ghost Rider 1 for $20 in a comic book shop at Pike's Place. It was worth $200 at the time, according to Wizard, so I was thrilled. I felt like I was pulling a fast one. When I went up to the cashier, I was nervous and giddy and fearful that they would realize their mistake and say no to the deal. Well, that's the best, man. That's the best when you find the book underpriced and you take it to the cash register and you're just like sweating bullets. You're thinking like, oh man, I hope he doesn't realize that I got, you know, a book right now for, you know, 3 times less the price. You're just hoping that they don't pull out eBay or Key Collector or something like that. But they sold it to me like it was nothing. The chumps, I'd won. I was overjoyed as I left the shop, feeling like Indiana Jones having barely escaped with the prize in hand. I know the feeling. I know exactly the feeling. Well, it turns out I was just young and ignorant to the fact that some comics have multiple series runs with the same title. And the Ghost Rider I bought was not the first series #1. So it was worth, you guessed it, $20. I was crestfallen. I saw the world for what it was truly that day. I was a sucker. I'd been duped by my own ignorance. I haven't been the same since, but now I am a bit wiser. Oh man, you know what? That reminds me of being a little kid, going into a comic shop for the first time, collecting Silver Surfer Volume 3, the Steve Englehart run. And I literally remember going into the bin and picking out Silver Surfer issue number 3 and being like, oh dude, this is the 3rd Silver Surfer. And I remember giving it to my dad, who was going to buy the comic book for me. And I noticed on the wall behind the cash register guy, there was a reddish cover with Silver Surfer dashing at a devil, and it said Silver Surfer 3 on there. And I was like, what is that? What's that Silver Surfer 3? I have Silver Surfer 3. I'm buying it right now. And that was the first time I realized that there was different volumes to this, and that the Silver Surfer 3 I had wasn't the 3rd appearance of Silver Surfer. Wasn't even close to the third appearance of Silver Surfer. Sometimes you got to learn, you know? Sometimes you got to have those L's. And I know that I've had many of them. I mean, my biggest regret in comic books to this day, you guys probably saw the video, was me making my trade for that X-Men 1 and getting scammed out of $5,000 worth of my own comic book. So that's got to be my biggest regret, is just going through with that trade. But some of my other big regrets are mostly selling my comic books that were nostalgic to me, you know, my childhood collection. I don't really mind selling comic books that I have that are keys that it's like, yeah, it'd be nice to, you know, have not let that one go. Or like, yeah, I could have held out longer and gotten more money for it. But really, it's the ones that you can't ever replace. Anyways, that's all for this video. That was me sharing this Reddit thread with you guys. I always enjoy going through the comic collecting Reddit forum, you know, talking about collector stories. These are sort of the fun things that we get to, you know, share with each other as a community. What are your biggest regrets in comic book collecting? Either they're buying or selling. I'd love to hear it in the comments down below. That's all I got for this one. Like, comment, subscribe, Kickstarter, final day. If you want to support, I'd really appreciate it. Link is in the description.